Okay. So yeah, I'm Holly Birtles and I'm based in London. So my work often incorporates performance, often choreographed events, usually related to it's just when I get close it gets really odd. Kind of quite ecological violence. I mean, I've been working on a project based on volcanoes for the past 2-3 years, and before that, and coinciding that on rivers. So people often perform these structures or materials based around the space, and working only really with analog and obviously analog into digital, and more recently AI images.
Hello, I'm Ārun from Chennai. I'm a photographer as well, and I've been practicing for nearly 10 years. My practice is mostly documentary and artistic, so it's like fiction and real. I mix together and try to do the work. And I've fairly shoot in analog also, and I've been from 2014 I've been practicing analog. But I didn't start as an analog photographer, I started as a digital photographer. My journey started also as a commercial photographer, but it was too much in one point, and then I stopped that. And then as 2014, I started as an analog photographer, so I just became an assistant again, and then start fairly the process again. So and then relearn everything what I had learned. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Soham. I'm based between Birtles and pretty much between UK and India. My practice essentially looks at mostly qualitative photographic processes, but also looking at how we can relate our identity and really just getting under the skin of the photograph, looking at the materiality of the work itself. This work was one of the first works that I've made around to begin with my identity, and also just essentially it's been a nice process, really, of exploring the photographic medium and the agency the camera has over us, and essentially how we situate ourselves within these conversations with mostly the photographic process, really.
Thank you for sharing a bit about your practices. So, during the residency...
Sorry. Yes, thank you. Continue.
So it was 45 days. I don't know how many people in the audience are photographers, analog photographers work in the darkroom, but you've achieved a lot, all of you have achieved a lot within the time that you've been here, which is really incredible. And I think it would be really nice today and now to dive a little bit more into the practicalities of each of your technical processes. And maybe after we can speak a bit more about how that relates to the themes of the works that you're presenting in the exhibition here. So yeah, if you could each just share a bit more about, camera to print, what it looks like in your case.
Who goes first? Okay, fine. So the initial start of the process is making, as I mentioned earlier, performances and constructed imagery with usually medium format, sometimes large format negatives, and also some digital images, and I've been inputting them into AI, and I've been putting them into AI. Does that somebody? Yeah.
Much closer, yes.
Okay, cool. So there's lots of layers that go into, so image inputs into Midjourney, and then using the darkroom as a way to print them digitally, but also incorporate layers of negatives. So what you see in every image is different some images are fogged, some images are double exposed. Often I'm using every sheet, or I'm pre-exposing every sheet, which is then juxtaposed with a digital negative. The importance of the layers is also quite conceptual, in that the concept isn't just about what we find in rivers, but it's also about experience, it's about the creatures, it's about all of these components that kind of create these sort of monstrous animals or creatures, whatever you want to call them, monsters. And so a lot of the AI images too have people in them, and often there is this examination of these lumps or whatever it might be, and a part of that is to do with the idea or the notion of fighting, and also part of the kind of complexity of the issue. So the layers are there, and actually it sort of suits my normal process, because when I'm not working with AI, I'm working with larger medium format performances and layering the sorts of images. So it might be a performance where someone dresses up as a fish, or I don't know, an octopus or something, and actually it's juxtaposed with the kind of place that I'm interested in. And also just to disregard, I like to play with that process. So sometimes just ruining the image, sometimes it just goes black, but a lot of the time fogging or solarizing, and I'm working with actually quite messy, and I'm not very meticulous. So a lot of the images are also a response to the kind of reruns and what you should come through mid-journey, so you can kind of recreate. And so I've been recreating through darkroom experiments. Yeah.
Hi. So the darkroom experience as a 45-day experience was quite interesting, and as I said in the below, it was like my day starts at 4 o'clock and ends around 8:30 or 9, because as the combined process is a bit unforgiving, because with the climate and it takes a really long time to dry a single print. So fairly I get 2 prints a day. So the process is about putting light sensitive material on a watercolor paper, and then gum arabica is mixed with it, and you expose it to the UV source, and then you wash it. So once you put it in the paper, goes in the water, it takes nearly 4 hours to dry. So at this time I have to wait, and then again I have to put a black paint or oil paint on top of it, and then remove it again with a brush. So why this process is because I prefer to do documentary and artistic stuff. So this is where the blend is happening. So I can play with the brush, so I can manipulate the images a bit I want, but not too much. So if I want to, let's say I want to put a fairly little bit sky on, there is a really plain sky, I can make little bit clouds on it. And there is a possibility with the brush and how much control and contrast you can do. And with this process, also the landscape, and with the landscape it gives more deep dark tones, which is also translated into surreal, and I find this place much more mystical. This is over a 3,300 kilometer motorcycle journey in the mountain regions of Tamil Nadu. So, and this was started after the first opening of the lockdown. And I and my friend Satish took the motorcycle, went in the journey without nothing in mind. So just said we will go, and then that's it. And no destination in mind, and we shift one to another, and then we share, and we made fellow travelers and people in the mountain regions and some tribes, and they share their ritual with us. We met the chieftesses, and they share their ritual with us. So it's more natural. We are lucky that we got an experience to see a 10-year festival where they remove the thatchet of the temple and then put it back. So it's like the mother temple for the tribe, Tola tribe, and the people from other regions of the tribe gathered that day. So it's like we can witness the entire people there, and it was really amazing. Like it was really brings back like this is how the previous time works. It's like really crazy experience and like really surrealistic experience, which was. And these things I have to put it into the work, which is an inspiration. And after coming back from the trip, I started research on the mountain regions where in Tamil classic literatures, and I find a beautiful poem called Kurunji Potter, which is Song of the Mountains. And in this song, there is documentation of the mountains. It's the song from 2-3 centuries CE, not now. So it has a documentation of the flora and fauna of the mountain, and also love affair and many things. It's quite popular. So, and this is one of the beautiful song I read about it, and this inspired me to go back again to see how I can integrate this into my work. So I took these two inspirations from the poem and tried to create this work. And fairly, that's where everything started. Then only I started to come back and do the gum oil process. Coming back to the process, this is fairly the part of the work. And coming back to the process, how I did it, it was like it's a fairly simple process to say. It's just like you coat a site sensitive paper, expose, coat black paint, and you get an image. But in right conditions. For Indian weather, temperature, it is not good. Everything changes from every small fraction of seconds changes, you don't get a single image. So the first thing I had a problem was to buy a roll of paper, and paper came, we opened it, full fungus. Entire roll is gone. And then I have to go back to the manufacturer, see them. And he is bringing out one roll by one roll. Everything is fungus.
Who's the manufacturer?
That is not the point. So, and then that's not the thing. That's because the climatic conditions. We have a humid climate. It's not about the manufacturer. We have a humid climate, and makes the prints difficult to achieve. And then I find a right paper, bring it, test it out. I do the first test print, small print. Paka. Okay, cut the paper, coat it, put it, expose, no image. Cut, reset again, and then make a test print. Coat it again, put it everything, super image, and then coat bigger paper, no image. This means my day starts at 5. I live from 25 kilometers from here, so 4 o'clock, come here, 1 hour drive, do this, end of the day, no result. For 1 week, full frustration. Half of the paper roll is gone. Frustrated, because I have limited amount of paper to produce the print. What is the mistake? Reset everything from top to bottom. The gum was like everything, like changing from calculating from milli ml of water, everything from that, and then again we coat. And luckily, I was working completely like this. Fairly, I can coat with this kind of light, so it doesn't get exposed. So what was the issue is the bulb which is inside the lab was exposing the paper. But for the small print, it dries quickly, I get an image. But the bigger print, nobody knows that. Nobody knows that, even the lab people doesn't know there is this creating a problem. And turn off all the lights, use only very small amount of light, coat it, dry it, work completely in minimum light, expose it, bam, there was the print. But by this time, half of the residency is over. So that's was I have 25 days, like 20 days, around to say, we can say 20 days of left. I have to print. So I come daily, come. Okay, this is the day. Full rain. Motorcycle, again coming and then ready and start to print everything. Now, because of the humid climate, now December, it was December to Jan, so it takes a long time to dry. How to dry it without forcing it? You can't blow dry it because it's a gum arabica piston, it starts. So if you put lot of heat, it's closing the paper. What shall we do? So they have a drying cabinet in the lab, and what we did is we did like a small thing, like take a blow dryer, put it under the under the box, bring the air up so that hot air comes up. So it closed the box, put the dryer down, so it force dry it, but not force drying to the extent, like creating a natural environment to dry it. So we are blowing the air up and it automatically is dry. So that I cut short by 2 hours of drying time. By that I can create 3 prints a day. So this way I create and everybody helped like 16 prints. In that also some failures happen, which because there's many you can't. Some prints really looks beautiful. Like for example, there is a test print also. So some are really good, some are doesn't work in this technique. You think this will work, this picture will work in this technique, but doesn't. So that's how put it away. So that's also eaten the time. Finally come to the last week of the residency. Okay, what next? So there was actually, after seeing this space, that's the important thing. The residency is supposed to be 3 days, not for a month. So Shalini gave the space for 1 month. We come on the second day of the residency, and then you see this beautiful space. All right, let's push little bit, and that's what made it to happen. So this push was completely happening throughout the day. So as my friend Ariel says, you are good to go, but you need to work for the extra marks. So that's where the projection thing was happening. You are good, you are set. The proposal was to make the gum oil for the residency. That was the proposal. But okay, that I know the process, but I need to do some experiment. So that's where this comes of the projection. Projection part was happening. There was first we were thinking was going to be digital, and that was like, okay, why digital? We are doing analog. We are not going to do digital. Okay, what else we can do? Let's do slide projector. Slide projector, digital negative, slide projector not working. And I've shot everything in film, which is negative. So you can't project negative, because if you project that, every image is going to look ghostly. How to convert them into positive, like a photograph, and it has to be in the projection. Okay, let's go back to the basics. Read everything. Sorry. And then read everything, and then we calculate all the things, and we recopy negative to positive. And we recopy negative, like we copy one negative to another negative, positive, minus, plus, minus, plus. That was the idea. So, and then we get a positive, but that was not a good one. So, and we have to calculate all these things. My knowledge is also a little limited, and we go through the notes, and Anshul was there. This is the formula, we cut down this formula, I use my formula. Finally, we come to a level, this formula works. And that day nobody was there. And whenever there is a breakthrough happen, there's one person with me. Everybody leaves and there's only one person. That is Chiranjeevi. That's the other person. He comes and says, I am the one, I am the lucky one for you. Because whenever you do a breakthrough, when I get my first print, he says, I was there. When I get my first positive, and he was there. So Chiranjeevi was there, good, encouraging me, and then we did it. it happened. Everything was pakka. Even for so that's the thing. It's a whole labor of love and a lot of encouragement with my fellow people and also with the fellow resident and and big thanks to the darkroom team. Without them, it's not possible. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, sort of coming back to the question really, that I was about the institute was related to the campaign process. Just wanted very okay.
I think, yeah, if you could specifically, we can do like individual questions, but if you could specifically speak to, I mean, all of these artists, there's a correlation between the process and the concept of the work that they're presenting downstairs. In some cases, it's completely intentional. I think in Soham's case, that's the way, in the sense that you. No, it's not. I feel like you chose to do. Okay, you can tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Anyway, I mean, it was essentially the main camera and the image. So the project really, the way it's centered around the camera is when I first started making this work, writing, it was about really, I mean, paper negatives is something we use mostly to test out. Right? Like, it's like, or a camera, right? Like, it's like, oh, is it working? Is the lens working? Is the focus okay? It's like, load in a negative and do it. But what I realized eventually was that the agency the camera in a way has over the piece, and then hence also, the subjects in a way. Because some of these pieces at times would come out crumpled and the camera will often end up rejecting it. But then that, which again, as I said earlier when I was talking downstairs about this sense of dysphoria that I was feeling about my identity and this sense of really coming out, I was like, oh, wait a minute, so essentially things have to fit into the camera to be like, it's like, oh, okay, you fit in, kind of thing. And then that just led me to accept those scratches at times, or those crumples at times in the work, and they became a part of the process. So I feel like the camera, in a way, that ended up dictating how the pieces would take their fate, in a way. And the 4x5 or the 8x10 that I've played with really just brought about more of that aspect. It was like, oh, the image is quite big, but then the slides sometimes they would almost just spit out the image idea, because if you slightly angle it down, you don't have the big negative in there. So yeah.
I suppose what I mean, like you're saying that, I suppose what I mean is like how you presented the work in a practical sense, and maybe how that relates to visibility of queerness or invisibility of queerness. I don't know, that kind of.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think, thank you for that, Mikey. So, one of the things I'm doing differently this time is I'm showing it in a dark side. And what I've been playing with exactly this is visibility and inversion, really, is that when you shoot the pictures, they're upside down, because you see everything upside down in a large format camera. I'm showing them like this, is like this side, I'm essentially inverting them. And it was really about, that, oh, now they've developed and they've come out quite literally from the process and they've gone through the process. So, yeah, it was, just that idea of them coming out and really showing themselves came from the same box that they came out from. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another thing that's like very interesting about each of your processes is kind of the like succumbing to a lack of control in some cases. I mean, we just heard about the wild journey that you've been on, which is completely related to the journey that you actually went on to take those photos. I think in your case, it's very interesting. Like we spoke a bit about why you use AI and maybe how you use AI in a way that is a little bit different to how AI is being used in the photographic world, because you're still very much in the analog space. And I wondered whether you could speak a bit about that in relation to control and maybe like the themes that you're working with in your work.
Yeah, I think there's like several reasons thinking about AI, and one of them was that loads of my cameras broke at the beginning of it, but I was always inputting images into it anyway, and also working with people is regular. So I often work with singers, artists, writers, and it is a collaboration actually, and that's how I saw AI, sort of global weird collaboration. And another reason is because within these fictitious realities that I create anyway, there's this combination of real and not real, like fiction and truth, whatever. And so there's this manifestation of a new reality through so many. And the idea that you could put 5 images into one prompt was really quite cool, because you never really knew, and then actually in the end you start to learn really what it is. So now I have all these images in a file, so I have my own AI image file, and I know exactly, if I want something to fly in the air, I use this image, or if I want it to look really grainy or textured, I use this image. And other times I just go a bit rogue and I just see what happens, and that can be quite cool, or it can be not good, but essentially you don't really know what you want it to look like until suddenly these images keep coming up, and actually they do sort of look like my normal work. That's sort of how it shifts. But yeah, I like the idea of merging and creating these layers, like I said a minute ago, not just, it's a bit about the layering of concepts as well as just the layering of images that comes into one, and the idea that you can have lots of variety and you can rerun them as well, so if you want to come back to an image. And that's my intention actually, is to open them up a little bit so you can see them a bit more, so to shift from the mid-journey format.
Can you also just, before we move on, and I want to take questions from you if you have, can you just say a little bit about Bastiananda and why you wanted to do a ode to him? I love that work where he is just crying uncontrollably, and so many people relate to that. And when I put it online, so people were starting to write to me and say that they've made work, or they've been talking about their work to some students or whatever. But and the other thing is his connection, because he was a sailor, and obviously he got lost at sea in the 70s, and they only found his boat, and then his boat was stolen. I thought that was a really interesting story, and quite often I look back to the 60s and 70s to homage. I had an idea to bring more homages into, and I think maybe that will be a move on to the future images, like bringing old images into AI and kind of recreating performances from them. But that was the most relatable to thinking about water, uncontrollable emotion, and also obsession with bodies of water, to the point that you would risk. Yeah, exactly, unless he's not dead. Yeah, I don't think he's dead, but that's a conspiracy. I think that really touches on why I think that all of your works together just work really brilliantly. There's this, well, first of all, you have all created completely different works in terms of process and in terms of theme, but all very emotive. In your case, kind of spiritual, and the process of the using the gummo and the brush, it kind of taps into that as well. And I just really like this, what you said about uncontrollable crying, and Soham mentions this in relation to what you can and what you can't control in the image that is coming out, or maybe in your case also the perception, how people are receiving you. And you also had very uncontrollable environmental issues, which is,
Yeah, that's where the idea of the typewriter also came, because when you go analog, we thought we will go analog, bringing typewriter and type it out also, and that was a difficulty when we tried to find someone to type in this political immediately, and Ajay, who was trying to help me to get it typed. And it was very difficult to find someone to type for us. The codes were closed, so there is documentation, people were not available. And you tried some institutions, and they don't also want to do type. And typing in Tamil is very difficult to find. And luckily we find someone nearby and get it typed. But still there is some mistakes there. So that's, and finally I thought, okay, we don't want to correct their mistakes, so just embrace the imperfection. So as the print's also not perfect, so as this goes along with it, exactly. We can't recreate the exact same print again. So that's the idea of that also.
amazing, thank you. I'm going to open up to questions from the audience, if you have any questions. Yeah.
To Ārun,
Yes.
did you have options on the gradation and the texture of the paper? Is there a certain limitation achieving to the texture?
Yes, not all paper will work. There is specific printmaking papers will work, and what I was use is bamboo paper. It's an archival bamboo paper, which also have a specific texture to it. And after coating to the oil paint, and when I remove it, it leaves a lot of grains. So I specifically choose a bamboo paper for it. It's like 90% bamboo, 10% cotton. So I specifically choose this paper for the texture. So it's like mixing the texture into the oil paint.
So can you increase the texture?
Yes, but fairly not so much. It's technique based. So how much you rub, it can peel the paper or not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else with a question? Yeah? Did you put your hand up? No. So any last comments from any of you? I know, Sam, you wanted to speak about the box. Do you want to speak about the box?
Yeah, sure. So if you just take a look down in front of the install things, there's a box. So essentially there was, well actually, one of my wonderful collaborators, who will be here soon. So they're a wonderful poet, and we were having this back and forth about essentially them writing a poem for this work when I was showing it initially in red. And then just sort of brainstorming, I was like, I'm making work around this gender, like with non-binary-ness and queerness of objects. I was like, why not let's just remove all the bindings. So the first dummy book I made was actually bound with essentially the page, behind the page you would have the piece, so you'd have to like take the piece out and see it. The idea was essentially looking at safe spaces in a way. But then, funny enough, I was shooting, I've almost never shot large format film until very recently when I was graduating, and I finally had the time to actually go to the document development. I was like, wait, that acts like a safe space, for these pieces, is because at that point the idea was also to make them ephemeral, where the longer you leave them out, the more faded they start getting. So I would essentially not stop the development. So they end up becoming this almost this human printish piece. But yeah, the box really then added to that layer where it's an unbound book box, and then there was a time also when I was really inspired by Danit, for example, where I was looking at that idea of like why does how can I add more sculptural quality to the book? So the poems there are, the first one is the one in white is by my partner Joshi Sharma. She was writing about her experience really with queerness, and then the second one is by Ārun. And the pieces in there are the former pieces I made when I was going through this entire process and I was exploring the work. And it is a work in progress, so everywhere I go I'm really looking at collaborating with more writers, more people who will do this.
I'm speaking in Tamil.
Yeah.
Three of your works very excellent. The way of your explode, way of trying, very, very interesting. But I want to say about Ārun.
Ārun.
Sorry. When I'm seeing Ārun's work, I felt it's more than his work. I felt himself, and that I'm reading a book. I'm seeing a character. How the character trying to make so much struggle and loving and going and seeing, exploring more beyond the work. He did so much. So I felt as a fiction, I saw him as a character, how the work comes. So while I'm seeing, I didn't understand. I understood, but not openly. It's difficult for me to understand the language English and trying to get what he's saying. But after he's saying about the work, the process very much touched me. And a creator means how much we are keep on working, and whether we are getting or not, the failure also, I never think the success is that fruit. The failure is the fruit.
Yeah.
So I felt so wonderful.
Thank you.
I
Thank you
felt
so much.
much
Thank you.
interesting.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
That's beautiful. I feel like that's, unless anyone has any questions, that's okay.
Just out of curiosity, given what she was sharing about the amount of time and the amount of, it's a lot of labor of love, do you, amongst all of you, just to understand, are these processes you see taking, would you kind of incorporate it into your practice going forward, or you feel this was something that was more of an experiment? And do you see yourselves actually using some of this going forward in your?
I think you should have answered.
Sorry?
You should have answered.
So this is an ongoing project, and this is not completed yet. So it will take some years to finish. So as also this alternative process thing is this project. Also I thought okay, I will do this project, and luckily I able to find this project, find this process to go and co-instantly work together. For the next project, it can be different. It can be collage also. It can be anything else. It can be, but there will be, of course, analog element will be there.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking a bit about the next phase of it, and I want to remake the AI, so bring it to life. So there's this circle of images, AI images, that maybe it's just ongoing, but I quite like prop making, so that kind of leans into my work that maybe is more usual than the AI process. But also in the dark room I was thinking with scale, and we tried lots of multi-panel things and just maybe recreating singular images with the kind of multiple. The reason I started with that paper also was because that's what they like to use, and I felt it looked like the screen. So anyway, yeah, moving forward, it's about recreating, and I think leaning into giant fish.
excited to see that. Because something I feel like I will get rid of it. Holly had this massive projection. Anshul and Ayush and everyone has been like, I wasn't there, they were making this, she projected this massive fish on the wall. And it was just so wonderful to see. I was like, oh my god, like I can't wait to see that come to life.
In real life. In analog as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Like an actual prop.
Yeah. But no, coming to my practice, there's two ways to it really, I suppose. I feel like this process is so personal to me and it directly ties to my own identity. So yes, as long as I exist, this work keeps going, and as long as I suppose awareness exists, the work keeps going, because it's always about putting forward these stories really through this work. And the second bit is actually funny enough. People have been very kind enough to let me introduce this into my commercial practice. I'm a fashion photographer, and my commercial practice mostly always had to do with looking at garments and how they fall in our body. So yeah, it's just been wonderful merging the two things together, and yeah. That answers your question.
Great. Okay, I think, just to say thank you to you all. You've made incredible work.
Actually, thanks to you. Thanks to you for the works, CPB, just everyone, the team. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks to everyone for coming.